Hi everyone, Keith here. I hope yesterday's post on the first stage of grief denial was helpful. And today is day 2. And we're going to be talking about the second stage of grief, which is anger. And anger in grief is often so misunderstood, because when people think of anger, they think of aggression or bitterness or somebody who isn't in control. But beneath grief, there is usually pain. And with grief anger, it's pain that has nowhere else to go. Because when someone loses a person or a relationship, a future, a dream, the mind starts searching for somewhere to place that hurt. And as a result of that, anger can become the emotional fire that rises from that helplessness. Sometimes we become angry at the world. We become angry at the doctors and the health workers. We become angry at family members who maybe we don't think did enough. We start questioning ourselves and become angry at ourselves. We can become angry at the person we've lost. And we can actually become angry at life itself. And that, for many people, can create a sense of shame. But grief anger does not make you a bad person. It just makes you human. Because deep down, there is often a voice saying, this wasn't supposed to happen. Or this isn't fair. I wasn't ready for this. Why them? Why me? Now, anger can appear loud and in your face, but sometimes, and most often, it appears quietly. It can look like irritability. It can feel like emotional numbness. It can look like snapping at people that you love or becoming frustrated over the tiniest of things. A feeling of constant restlessness or struggling to sleep. You can become emotionally defensive or feeling rage inside while on the outside trying to smile. And it's because of this that mentally, anger can be one of the most exhausting emotions attached to grief. Because when we stay in a prolonged state of emotional anger, the nervous system can remain in survival mode, and stress hormones are then released. The body becomes tense, the mind becomes hyper alert, and over time this can affect sleep. Your anxiety levels can increase, your blood pressure can increase, you'll find it hard to concentrate, relationships with other people will begin to suffer, and your overall mental health can decline. Because grief does not just only live in the mind, it actually lives in the body too. And here's something really important. Anger is often easier to feel than sadness. And why is that? Well, sadness can make you feel vulnerable. It can make you feel exposed. Sadness can make you feel powerless. But anger, that creates energy. That can create a feeling of protection. It can create a sense of control. And for a little while, anger can stop us from collapsing under the weight of that heartbreak. But just like denial, anger is not meant to become a permanent home. Because if grief anger is buried inside of us, it can start to spill out in every area of life. Relationships start to suffer, isolation begins to grow, resentment builds, and sometimes people begin turning that anger inward. We start blaming ourselves for the things and the events that were never in our control and we never could have controlled. So I guess the big question is, how do we deal with anger in grief? Firstly, stop judging yourself for having it. It is one of the stages in grief, and anger is to be expected. So don't punish yourself for feeling that. You're allowed to feel angry. Emotion itself is not wrong. What matters is how we carry it and how we express it. Secondly, give anger somewhere safe to go. We don't need to direct it at people. So where can we direct it? Where is it safe to go? So we can talk. We can write. We can exercise. We can go for a walk. I like to draw, so you can create things. We can cry. Punch cushions if you need to. Move the emotion through your body instead of trapping it inside your nervous system. Because the one thing about suppressed anger is it rarely disappears. It usually leaks out sideways and affects everyone else around us. But mostly it hurts us. Third, try to understand what sits underneath the anger. Because anger is normally a byproduct of something. And often beneath grief anger, we find fear, or we find loneliness, or we find guilt, sense of abandonment, heartbreak. So figuring out what that is can help us have more control of how we deal with it. Sometimes the anger is really love with nowhere to land anymore. And that part deserves compassion. Another important part with dealing with grief anger is connection. Grief can make people withdraw because they fear becoming a burden or fear losing control emotionally. But healing often happens in safe human connection. The right people will not expect you to grieve perfectly, and in fact there's no way to grieve perfectly. They will simply sit beside you while you grieve honestly. And please remember this. Feeling anger does not mean you're healing badly. It means your heart is trying to make sense of the pain that feels almost impossible for you to understand. Because grief changes people. It shakes identity. It challenges safety. It can even challenge faith, trust, and purpose. So, of course, emotions rise. But healing begins when we stop fighting our emotions. We start listening to what they're trying to tell us. So, if anger is the stage where you're at right now, breathe compassion into that space, not shame. It's okay to be angry. You do not need to become hard to survive the pain. You do not need to punish yourself for being human. Feel it. Express it safely. Talk about it to people you trust, people you love. And remember that underneath, anger is often evidence that something truly mattered to you. And that love, that connection, that meaning is part of what makes you beautifully human. So, today, just be a little more kind with yourself. I'm Keith, and thank you for listening to day 2. Day 2 was all about anger, and if you know anyone who may benefit from hearing this, please share, and thank you for listening.